So today we're talking about simple phone sales. We have a client that had been struggling at the counter, and we were sending them a lot of leads and they weren't converting. So as we were going down the list, just like if you're in, if you bring a car in that has a check engine light on and you throw it up on the rack, you look for anything that's torn, worn, or frayed. We do the same thing with our clients. For some reason, we had a lot of leads that were coming in, a lot of calls that were coming in, but their car count was not going up. In fact, in two locations, it went down as we dumped more leads on the counter help, and so it was just really baffling. And so we went through and did a an audit. They're on CallRail, and this is some of the stuff that we had come up with for them. And I felt that it was it was so blatant that we needed to do it for this client. I thought that I would go ahead and share it with the rest of you, so that you can go ahead and train your counter help on this. So we are talking about simple phone sales today. What does the customer want is the big question. And I feel that if you share the big vision with your advisors, then they will be able to sell much better because you have to take away the unknown. They have to understand what the real goal is. Uh, I don't know how many of you have heard the adage of there was an interviewer that went up to a job site and he talked to one of the bricklayers and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm putting this brick in the row, and I'm putting another brick in the row." And then he talked to another bricklayer and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm building a wall." And he talked to the third one and he said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm building a church." And so they have to have a vision of what you're trying to accomplish in order for them to really uh, come across and do a better quality of work and give you the product you're looking for. So you just share the vision with them. So you help them to understand what the customer really wants. Sometimes once you get on the phone, you're like, well, they just want a price. Well, that's not actually the case. They're just getting a price just because they don't have any measurables to measure it up against. They don't have any knowledge and education. So education is their first one. They want to make an educated decision. And so it is your advisor's job, your service writer's job to educate the customer as they call in and as they come in. So education is the number one thing that they're looking for. Secondly, communication. Number one, they want the education communicated to them, but they also want to be heard. And so we make sure that they are heard. And you're going to see that later on in this presentation, that we placate to the customer, let them know that they're heard, and that we fill that void in their lives. Some of them, you're the only one all day that is going to let them feel like they're heard. They also want an assurance that they are making the right choice, and that can come in different forms, but you can, and you'll see this later on in the presentation as well, but you can assure them that they're making the right choice and helping them feel educated and giving them hope. Uh, Also, they want a fast repair. They need their vehicle back. That's why they're calling you in the first place. And then last but certainly not least, they're looking for value. And this goes across the board into many different services. As we have surveyed over the years, people are looking more for value than for price. They might be calling for a price, but as I mentioned, that is because they don't know the difference between your shop and some other shops. And so we want to make sure that they understand the value proposition that you're giving them. And so that is the other thing that they're really looking for. So I would recommend sharing this video with your service writers, so they can see this is what the customer really wants. Price is not number one, and it shouldn't be number one on their list. That is just what they call and ask for, just because they don't know the difference. So it's our job to educate them on that. Um, I keep everything simple. When it comes to service writers in any industry, you want to keep things simple. You'll go to advanced sales classes that take 3 days. And I've been to said sales classes. I've been through Covey and a number of Mahan Khalsa, a number of different uh, sales methodologies, and simplicity is the number one way to make sure that you're going to get what you want. And that is for your customers to come in. We want selling over the curb. That's what we're talking about today, is getting the car into your bay, because possession is 9/10 of the law. In automotive, you get the car there and your chances of selling repairs for that car skyrocket. So we want to make it super simple, uh, because when you're simple, communication happens and you reach your goals. We try not to give price over the phone, and this is just in general. It's a generalized statement. Obviously, if they call for oil changes, we'll talk about that later. But if in general, you don't want to give them a price, because that is the only thing that they have to compare you against. And all of our clients are probably, there's somebody else in town that's cheaper, that's less expensive. And if you price them, then that is the only gauge that they have to go off of. Then they just straight up don't know what else to use but price. And so you're not going to get that sale in general. The general gist is she called up and said, I have a check engine light. My vehicle won't go over 60 miles an hour. Can I bring it in? And he talked her out of bringing it in. He said, well, we'd really need to look more into it and test drive it and things like that. And that'll be $180. He basically talked her out of bringing her car over when she said, can I bring my car over? As I did my audit, there were four major things that people called in about. So an oil change price was number one. People would call in and say, hey, what's your price for an oil change? And so I'm going to go ahead and share what the typical boilerplate responses are. They'd say, hey, can I get an oil change price? And say, absolutely. We offer synthetic blend change service for X, and a full synthetic for X. Both include up to 6 quarts of oil, replacement of your oil filter, and a no wrench inspection. And they need to give what is included here. So there were absolutely zero responses from this particular shop that talked about what the oil change included. And so some of the customers would have to lead the service rider through the conversation. And if the customer is leading, then they're going to lead away from you. If your service rider is leading the conversation, then they'll lead the customer to the shop. So it's just a changing of the tides and the change of control. So you want to make sure that you're keeping control of your customer and that you're keeping control of the conversation. Secondly, we could get you in at 2. Does that work for you? And so oil changes are very simple, and they're like, yeah, you can come in. And then some people will say, how long does it take? All of our shops on here are not going to be 5-minute oil changes. None of you are. And so it'll probably be 30 minutes to an hour, probably closer to the hour side. And if that comes up, they say, how long will it take? Say, well, it typically takes an hour because we want to make sure that your vehicle is safe to go back on the road. You just can't do that in 5 minutes. Does that make sense? And people are typically like, yeah, that makes sense. Or else you go down different rabbit holes. But this is your typical script for an oil change price. It should be fairly simple. And like I say, if they're looking for just price, then you may be the cheapest, you may not. But if you're not, and you can kind of hear that in their voice, if they're like, well, and they hesitate, then you'll know that you're not the cheapest that they've given. So you need to talk about what else it entails. If you do offer a free tire rotation, if you're topping off the fluids, those different things, they actually make a difference, because the place that they called that's only $39.99 or the Jiffy Lube or whatnot, they are not going to talk about topping off fluids when they call. They're just going to give them a price and an awkward pause. So does anyone have any questions on this one? Okay, the number 2. Go ahead.
I had an interesting just fill in yesterday, and it was not oil change related, but it was a customer that had come to us as the third shop after some frustrations. and she asked for a price on something that we had talked about that another shop had already done. Basically asked for a price for us to redo it. And it was a great opportunity to really reiterate that, this is the challenge of giving quotes is, you're really unhappy with what they did, and we may share the same title for our jobs, but the way that we do those jobs are very different. And so
Yes.
you paid $7,000 for this. It might cost $9,000 from us, but our goal is that when we touch this system, you don't have to think about it again for 100,000 miles. It's not to get it done at the lowest price today, but be something you still have to fight. And so I think those opportunities are just great, kind of education and weeding opportunities for grooming the customers the way that we want them to do business, that sets us up both to succeed.
Absolutely. And you jumped a slide ahead. Well, I'm going to go ahead and pull this
Dang
one
it.
up. So we do have some major repairs that people call in off of. The transmission's not shifting. Like you said, it might have been a $9,000 job. But the first thing that your service writer wants to say is, "I'm sorry to hear that." They want to hear some compassion. And you're going to be the only shop in town that gives them some sort of compassion. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that. Um, I wouldn't be too worried about it. That can be something as simple as a worn shifter cable, which that is absolutely accurate. Especially if they're calling for a transmission price, you can offer that. But like you said, you have to have some differentiation here. We have a transmission client here in Salt Lake City that we've coached on, and they will say it might be something as simple as a worn shifter cable, but if they called in on a specific transmission, like you've got a 5.4 V8 Triton engine, then there are some aftermarket parts that have come out that make that transmission last longer. And so in the initial call, if there is an update or something that it's not OEM, that just say, hey, those are notorious for this particular part going out. We'd like the opportunity to go back and fix it right so it doesn't happen again, or you're not back here. You can work on your phraseology to where you're not back in 50,000 miles with the same problem. That is something that differentiates you from all the other shops. Just like Ryan is talking about, if you are aware of an issue and how it's been fixed through manufacturer changes, model design, or if there's a different service that can prevent that, if somebody had their transmission already replaced and they didn't replace the cooler lines or something like that, then that is something that can differentiate you. Does that fit in with your wheelhouse there, Ryan?
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. But this is over the curb selling. It's very simple, very general. I'm sorry to hear that. It could be something simple because the majority of what I listened to with this particular client, they said, "Okay, come on in. It's $180 for us to look at it, basically." Instead of the free look over, it was $180 for they are trying to sell a full diagnostic over the curb. And that's not what I teach. It's not what I recommend. I recommend that you get the vehicle over the curb and gain their trust before you sell them. And that comes back up here to this slide that we skipped. Um, you gain their trust as they come and they meet you. If you're face to face and they've seen your shop, you'll be gaining their trust if you're running your shop correctly. If you're not gaining their trust at that point, that's a different webinar. So, but you have additional trust once they're in front of you and they can see your face. They now know you. I've told many of you here that I do business with people that I know, like, and trust, and they're the same way. They want to trust you before they make a major purchase. And if you're talking about a transmission that is $4,500 for a rebuild over the phone, they don't know you yet, so they're just going to call and get another price. Somebody else is going to say, okay, it's 4,000, and they don't know the difference, and they'll go that route instead of to your shop. Um, but this is as simple as it goes. I'm really sorry to hear that. Could be something simple, and then we could take a look at it at 2 o'clock. Does that work for you? And if you're busy and it's 2 more days before you can. Just be very open with them. You don't want to put them off too long, obviously, but you don't want to put them out either. Okay, check engine light was another one that was very common that people were calling in on. And once again, they were continuing to quote $180 diag over the phone. This is how they sell it. Just simplify it. I'm sorry to hear that you're having that problems. That's not doesn't make for a good day. Whatever they want to say there is fine. But it's, once again, don't worry about it. It could be something as simple as a loose gas cap. We can take a look at it at 2. Does that work for you? Uh, See, there's no commitment here. You're just getting them in, and it doesn't cost them anything to come in, and you're building their trust. AC not blowing cold was another one. This was probably number 4 on the list, but it was super popular. And I would just say something compassionate like, "Oh no, we can't have you driving around in a hot car." Uh, and especially, the customer likes to hear that they shouldn't be driving around in a hot car. But don't worry, that's usually a quick fix, and it can be if you're just topping off the Freon or the refrigerant, excuse me. And we can take a look at it at 2 o'clock. Does that work for you? This is so simple. This is, if you don't veer from this as a excuse me, as a service writer, then you're going to be successful. It is just that simple. You're not giving them prices. You're not trying to make them say yes 3 times in the same presentation. You are just getting their car there. So do we have any thoughts or questions?
Just kind of a sentiment for me that some of this is reprogramming. We were able to be so picky and choosy for a couple years that I feel like some of these skills diminished because
Mhm.
we went through a phase of really trying to groom our customer base that we had a lot of kind of, yeah, just not aligned customers. And so we went through a couple years of really just trying to hone in our customer base. And price is one of the ways that you dial that. And that can, if you're not careful with that, that can come off as kind of elitist or you can come across not great to the client where you're not being welcoming. And so I think that's the fine line that you need to know your value. You need to know that, we want to do things for us the modern way. That's how we want to do it because we're confident that that is what's going to make them long-term happy, not necessarily give them exactly what they ask for today, which may be short-sighted. But in doing that, being very inviting and not because yeah, listening to phone calls, I see that where we start getting into you're kind of prejudging the situation, and that's not the objective. The objective is to get them in the door, show them our process, the way that we do things, and then do they see the value in it? If yes, great. If not, okay, we'll move on from there.
And it's okay to not be a match for every customer.
Right.
So does anyone else have any thoughts and comments? Ryan, I appreciate you chiming in. Okay, once again, you see this as a really short webinar. It should be short. It should be simple. Show this to your service writers and help them to understand that this process is very simple. Share with them your goals. If you're like, we're saying yes today, we need to put cars in bays, then that needs to be communicated. If you have multiple owners, by the way, or multiple managers, you've heard the expression, no man can serve 2 masters. Make sure that they know what the goal is. If we're saying yes, that's awesome. If we're not saying yes, if we're turning down major engine work, we just want smaller stuff, whatever it may be, we want brakes, communicate that and then reiterate it often. So thank you so much. I'm going to wrap up because, like I say, this is just a very, very simple presentation. Jesse, brother, it's good to see you. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. Good. Apologize for being late.
You're good. Yeah. So if you haven't had a call with me in a while, everyone, just go ahead and book that with Gab. We'll make that happen. The reason that I hired her is to allow me to spend more time with our clients, not to spend less. And so I appreciate everyone, and we're just going to go ahead and say goodbye until next week.
Just one thing I didn't get to say thanks yesterday. I didn't get to hop on that call, but that Facebook deal last week with the name game was epic. So as far as I think we got like 5 appointments scheduled out of it in an hour. And so just kudos. That worked out really, really well. And I actually, when I did that 6 years ago, I had somebody come in this last week and said, "Hey, can I still redeem this?" So we had done that game 6 years ago. And we said, "Yeah, sure, if it drove you in." So it's
And
cool.
we didn't do that for everyone last week. So do you want to tell everyone what happened?
Yeah, yeah. So it was a repeat of something we'd done when we first opened the shop, maybe 8 years ago, and we did it for a couple of years. But we would post a name on Facebook, and whoever called in first with that name, we gave away a free oil service. That was what we'd done with the past. We'd done it where they had to like respond, and so it kept me glued to Facebook, which I hated. So this way, one, I didn't have to monitor Facebook throughout the day. And then two, the other downside of it is the first person wins, and then the advisors spend the rest of the day giving bad news to everyone else. And so what we did with it is we just get an offer, a discount offer. So we did half off of the subsequent people. And so it was great. The first one came in, the advisors communicate with each other, "Hey, this has been redeemed. Everything else is half off now." And it filled the schedule with some good people. And it was like the engagement, I think it was shared like 10 times within an hour or, something crazy like that. And so as far as just people doing work for us to disseminate data, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well done on that. So
Yeah.
we appreciate all y'all as partners and everything. The ideas that you come up with, I love the ability to share it with other ones in the group. And so continue to do that. It's great. So we appreciate you, Ryan. I'm looking forward to June 16th when we're coming out and doing that sales training.
Yeah.
It's gonna be awesome. So thank you so
Cool.
much.
Yep. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.